Welcome back to the San Diego Opera Podcast. I'm Nick Ravelis, and my guest today is the baritone who is playing half of the character in As One, which opens on November 10th, Kelly Markgraf. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you here. You premiered this work, right, at Brooklyn Academy?
Correct, yeah. I was involved in the premiere at BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music. That was in 2014, I believe, so quite a few years ago, but the piece has gone on to have quite a few productions.
It has. I think we're counting 12 or 13 or something like that at this point?
At this point, but by the end of next season, it'll be 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unheard of.
How many have you been involved with?
This is my fifth, I believe.
Okay.
There was even one in Berlin last summer.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, it had an international life, yeah.
Very cool. I
Yeah.
mean, for a brand new piece from 2014, that's remarkable.
It's remarkable. It's more than remarkable. A lot of times with premieres in the opera world, you know, the composer and the librettist are lucky if their piece gets a premiere. And then for it to move on to a second production is really excellent.
Yeah.
And then for it to move on to a third is kind of unheard of. So to already have 12 or 13 under our belt with this piece, it's really phenomenal.
Now, being a singer involved with the creation of the piece, how much were you involved in the creation of the piece? How much did the composer and the librettists, frankly, give you leeway to work with the character and build it?
Great question. So we weren't involved in workshopping it. Some other singers workshopped it. But then once we were involved in the rehearsal process, it really became entirely a collaborative thing. Of course, the director had ideas and, you know, he gave a structure for the piece, but because the piece is so intimate and it deals so much with psychology, really he required our input because we're the ones that are on stage inhabiting such a unique, dramatic situation in which two people play the same character.
Right.
So we really had to sort of bare our souls to him and you know, him to us as well, so that we could all work together to craft something that became genuine on the stage.
Okay. I think it's probably time, both for our audience and for me, for the elevator speech.
Yeah.
So if you're meeting somebody and you're talking about this project that you're in, how do you describe it?
Oh, I wouldn't even describe it as an opera, frankly. I like to think of it more like a play with music.
Mm-hmm.
I think that anybody who comes to see it will be pleasantly surprised in that way. Opera is evolving. It no longer has to be the grand productions of Aida or Carmen, you know, with massive choruses and everything involved.
But what it has to do is evolve.
It has to evolve, exactly, yeah. So what we have here is a prime example of opera evolving. It's a contemporary topic, it's very timely, and you know, we only have two characters on stage accompanied by a string quartet instead of by a full orchestra. It's very intimate, and what I find so remarkable about it is that really it's the kind of piece that a non-opera goer can come and fully enjoy without having to feel like they've gone through baptism by fire.
Right.
It's the kind of piece that you can have a wonderful experience sort of stepping your toe or putting your toe into the pond of opera, so to speak, gently. It's in English, so it's easy to understand. It's really accessible, and because the storyline is written so universally, even though it's on a specifically transgender topic, we had people at the premiere in Brooklyn and also in other productions coming up to us saying, you know, I felt really kind of uncomfortable with these topics prior to coming to see the show, and this has really changed my mind. I feel open to these experiences. I found myself empathizing with the character, even though I haven't experienced anything like that specifically, but in a way I had my own experiences like that as a kid, because I remember not having a sense of place and you know, having a bit of self-loathing and not knowing where I fit in or whether or not I loved myself as you know, who I really wanted to be. All these things are so universal. So
right.
Not only is it a good entree into opera because it's short and in English and timely and topical, it also is really universal.
How do you, as a singing actor, put yourself there? You're half of the character, I guess, which is a strange way of putting it, is Hannah before transition.
Right.
How did you put yourself there?
That's a great question. You know, I really have to return to the idea of its universality, because I, as an actor, cannot call up the experience of transitioning my gender identity. I can't do that. But because the struggles that this character goes through are indeed so human, we are all a member of this race of strange creatures that create civilizations, and our world is structured around us, and we all have these voices that seemingly never shut off in our heads. We drive ourselves crazy, we criticize ourselves. Anybody goes through these things, especially because this character is moving through his and then her adolescence. That's an incredibly wrought and tense time with so much angst and confusion going on.
We all remember that.
Yeah, everybody.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And some of us manage to push it down, better than others maybe. But it, because of that universality, what I know that my fellow actor and I, Blythe, what we were able to do is just call upon our own moments and our own experiences, and they are very closely akin to what the transgender character in this story feels and experiences. So there's a kindred nature there that allows us to get so close to it that we can then inhabit it. Yeah.
Speaking musically for a few moments, we're in the rehearsal hall, and I just saw you go through the fourth section, I think the fourth movement or fourth aria.
Right, fourth song.
Fourth song,
yeah.
Called The Perfect Boy. That's one of the most difficult and slippery things rhythmically that I've ever looked at and experienced. It's crazy.
It is.
How you... The funny thing is the music is very lyrical. It seems to me that a lot of the vocal writing is so lyrical, but there's stuff going on underneath in the string quartet rhythmically that is just mind-boggling to me. How do you get that all together?
It's a great question. It's a lot of layers, of progression. Because at first, when I got that score and I looked at it, I almost pulled my hair out.
I'm sure.
Thought, how can you... And then on top of that, you have to put the words in the right place. You also have to worry about singing, somewhat beautifully, hopefully.
Yeah.
And you can feel sometimes a bit conflicted about trying to conquer all those complexities. But once you get through it, like you said, the audience receives a lyrical piece.
Yeah.
And the brilliance of how it's written, even though it can be tough for me to tackle, the brilliance of how it's written is that ultimately the rhythmic complexity, which I agree with you, it's the hardest thing I've ever encountered in any music. What it does is it becomes like a textural underpinning that informs the inner turmoil of the character. So the audience receives me singing out about what I feel like I have to do. I have to show myself as a perfect man. I cannot allow these female gender tendencies to come out. I can't let myself be seen. Everybody would judge me. They hear these soaring lines, but they also hear the and that's so it betrays the inner truth of the character. So it's this wonderful juxtaposition. So I've come to a point where I finally am fully in acceptance of the fact that it's quite brilliantly written. Even though Laura had to sort of wink at me in the beginning and just say, "Don't worry, like you'll get there," So she knew from the beginning that it was going to be phenomenal. But it was one of those pieces that I just looked at and I thought, "Oh,
I'll bet."
Yeah.
Well, I saw it in Long Beach earlier this season, and the piece itself has great power. It as a theatrical piece, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I felt coming away from it that the music just fits it like a glove. It fits the experience of the transition and of the difficulty and of the challenge really, really well.
It does.
And that's your feeling as a performer as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, throughout every process, you wrestle with things here and there, and then slowly, as you come to sort of fruition with it, things meld. And ultimately, we've all felt that the music takes what is already a beautifully crafted and incredibly universal and true libretto written by Mark Campbell and Kimberly Reed. Kimberly herself is transgender. So it takes that libretto, those words, that script, and the music truly elevates it in the best way that you hope that opera accomplishes that feat. So we're left with an experience as an audience that really moves people. I sort of alluded to it earlier. We've had transgender people themselves come to see the show, and there are usually Q&As afterwards so that we can interface with the audience. And they have just shed tears in front of us saying, thank you for putting on stage with honor and with dignity our story, my story. The second this started, I felt like that I knew that was me, you know, and that has honestly been the most rewarding experience of my musical career. Because, you know, it's one thing to stand up and sing in the Marriage of Figaro and people go home with having heard a beautiful evening worth of music, but it's another thing to truly be able to directly touch people's hearts and give them an experience that transforms. And that sounds even a bit cliched. It truly happens with this piece. So every time that I am asked to do it, I think, you know, hell yeah, because I've done it already sometimes, and in this career, a lot of times people feel like, oh, I've done something, and maybe I'm sort of going to move forward and move on to other things. But with this one, I keep coming back to it because selfishly, that it's like you just crave that after you've had that once, that interaction with the audience, and that transformational experience that you see people have. You just want to give it to them again and again. Yeah.
Well, and I can't imagine a better way to sell the show and get people excited about it, and hope our audience comes to see it as well. Kelly, thank you so much.
Thank you.